I want to start with something that took me a while to find words for. There's a kind of exhaustion and tired that doesn't look like tired. It doesn't look like missing deadlines or canceling plans or crying in the car, though sometimes it does look like that too. It looks like answering emails promptly, showing up on time, keeping your voice even in conversations that deserve way more than that. And it looks just fine. And I spent a long time calling that fine strength. But here's what I've come to understand: when you don't have language for something, it doesn't always go away, it just goes quiet. It moves through the body and it becomes background noise you forgot you're living with. And that's how depletion hides in capable women. Not as collapse, but for a long time, continuation. You keep going, you keep managing, you keep being the version of yourself everyone around you needs. And sometimes in the middle of all of that, you lose track. You lose track of what you actually need yourself. That quiet disconnection, the one that happens while everything is still working, is what I want to talk about in this space. We live in a culture that rewards endurance more than self awareness. And the thing about being a high functioning, high capacity woman is that you get very you get very good at making everything look fine. You adapt, you regulate, you absorb, and over time the people around you just stop asking if you're okay because you've never given them a reason to. But I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it honestly. When was the last time someone asked you how you were and you told them the real answer? Not good, just busy. The real answer. Most of us don't even know what the real answer is anymore. We've been operating in an autopilot for so long that we've confused functioning with thriving. This space exists to interrupt that pattern slowly. By moving slowly, we can create enough stillness to actually hear what's running in the background. There was a period in my life where I was, by all external measures, doing well. I was reliable, I was productive, I handled things before they became problems, which sounds great, and it was, but it meant that I was never not on. There was always something to manage, something to anticipate, something to smooth over before it created friction. And the strange thing is that, like, I wasn't unhappy, I wasn't overwhelmed in an obvious way. I just noticed that I had started performing my own life. Like I was watching myself move through my days instead of actually living them. I was present physically, but something else, some quieter, more honest part of me had stepped back because that part was exhausted. That was a moment I started asking different questions. Not how do I do more or how do I push through, what am I carrying that I never consciously chose to carry? Or what am I calling discipline that might actually be self abandonment? Those questions did not feel comfortable. They still don't sometimes, but they were the beginning of something I didn't have language for yet, which is the practice of being my own guide instead of just being guided by my own momentum. Capacity without boundaries becomes quiet burnout. I want to share specific questions that shifted something for me because I think questions are underrated as a tool. We spend a lot of time looking for answers, but sometimes the more honest thing is to sit with better questions and just sit with them. So here's what I started asking. Where am I operating on autopilot? Not because I'm checked out, but because I've been reliable for so long that I've stopped questioning whether what I'm doing still makes sense. The next question that I asked was, what am I tolerating simply because I've always tolerated it? There's a difference between accepting and just accumulating. One is conscious, the other it just happens. The next question I asked was, what am I calling ambition that might actually be exhaustion wearing ambition's clothes? It's a tough one. And maybe the most uncomfortable question I asked was, what if rest didn't need to be earned? What if recalibration wasn't a reward for getting everything else done? What if it were a requirement for staying in alignment with the person you're actually trying to become? I didn't answer those questions perfectly, and I'm still working on those answers, for being honest with you. But I'm asking them, and that changed the direction I was moving in. Nobody really teaches us that part. We learn how to perform, we learn how to manage our time, our image, our relationships, maybe not. But we're taught how to push and how to optimize and how to improve, which are all great things. But listening, particularly the kind of listening that sometimes asks you to slow down or to stop or to ask if this movement is working, that's not something most of us were taught how to do or shown how to do. Becoming your own guide isn't about having the answers, it's about developing a relationship with your own internal experience that aligns and that is honest enough to tell you when something is off before your body forces that conversation. It's the ability to notice misalignment early, to recognize the difference between challenge that's growing you and pressure that's quietly eroding you. It's ultimately the ability to make adjustments from a place of awareness rather than crisis. And that kind of self trust is built slowly through consistency, not perfection, through noticing and not fixing. It starts with simply paying attention. Awareness is the beginning of self trust. So here's what this space is going to feel like. We're going to talk about the subtle things, the patterns that are harder to name because they don't look like problems, they look like competence. We'll talk about the difference between discipline and self abandonment because I think that that line gets blurry for women who are often expected to pour out a lot of themselves continuously. We'll talk about boundaries, not as rules you enforce, but as clarity you create for yourself. We'll talk about what it actually means to protect your energy, not as a productivity strategy, but as an act of self respect. We'll talk about softness. We'll talk about the kind of care that isn't aesthetic. It's more so nervous system support. It's what makes your life feel inhabitable rather than just managed and manageable. And I think lastly, we'll just reflect, not overanalyze or to spiral, but to understand, to see the patterns, to give things the language they need. Think of this space as a place to come back to yourself slowly, consistently, and without pressure. Clarity changes how you move through the world. I want to say something clearly because I think it gets misunderstood. Soft living is not a passive living. Softness isn't the absence of structure or ambition or discipline. It's the absence of unnecessary strain. It's choosing to stop adding pressure where pressure was never helping to begin with. You can be deeply ambitious and not harsh with yourself. You can be structured without being rigid. You can be the kind of woman who holds a lot and still decides that some things don't need to be held so tightly. Those aren't contradictions. They're a more honest, more sustainable version of strength. And when you stop confusing pressure with progress, when you stop treating exhaustion as evidence of commitment, that's when life gets quieter. And that quiet isn't emptiness, it's clarity. You can be disciplined without being hard on yourself. Okay, so if anything I've said today landed somewhere, if you recognized yourself in some part of this, I just want you to know that you're not alone in this experience. The tired that doesn't look like tired, the doing well that still somehow feels like not enough, the sense that you've been carrying things that maybe didn't need to be yours to carry, that's real. And it deserves more than just pushing through. This channel is for slowing down enough to notice, and sometimes choosing differently without guilt. And lastly, for building something quieter and more sustainable inside yourself. If that's something that you want more of, I'd love for you to like and subscribe so you can explore this with me. And I'll leave you with this. What if this isn't a season that needs more effort? What if it's a season that needs more honesty? Think about it.